All right, we left off in the last video with the Boston Tea Party. 18,000 pounds of British tea is dumped into the harbor as a way to protest this Tea Act, which the colonists saw as a way by the British to try to trick the colonists into supporting this act. Um, as a way to support the British East India Company. We discussed how the Parliament responded to this act of defiance with the coercive, or what will become known as the Intolerable Acts, essentially shutting down Boston from the outside world and putting it under the control of the military. And we saw the First Continental Congress essentially saying we can govern ourselves. We support the actions of defiance by the people in Boston. And if the British Parliament chooses to use force, we'll meet that force with an equal force. And so moving along, we will see the tensions continue. And after the First Continental Congress, many New England towns stepped up military preparations. You start to see in the formations of what will be known as Minutemen. These are civilian or citizen soldiers. This is something that's key in distinguishing the differences between the British Army and what will become known as the Continental Army. Americans, we don't have these professional soldiers. We have farmers, we have merchants, we have, your everyday run-of-the-mill, citizen now dropping their peacetime occupation to take up arms again and take up arms in this fight for the defense of liberty and human rights. Something to remember. These are civilian soldiers. And so, when times get tough, they're not trained and they're not mentally, not mentally strong enough to endure or to hold up, to the challenges and the setbacks and the obstacles that soldiers often face in times of war. And so, keeping the enlistment numbers up, keeping men to re-enlist into the army and not desert. This is going to be a problem that the Congress and that George Washington will have to face throughout the war. But as you saw these New Englanders started to step up military preparations, the British General Gage, he is the general that is in charge of Massachusetts during this time. He's placed in Boston. He learns about these preparations and he starts making preparations of his own to strike back. And he starts making up plans to arrest certain leaders that are organizing these acts of rebellion, and he wants to take away the ability of the colonists to fight. He wants to take away any sort of munition or weapons that the colonists might have. And so as we are approaching in April of 1775, we see that General Gage is ready to strike. He's ready to arrest and de-arm these Minutemen soldiers. And on April 18th, the night of April 18th, 1775, Paul Revere and others, they spread the word that 700 British soldiers were headed to Concord, Massachusetts. This is the story that you might have heard of Paul Revere running through the night or riding through the night on his horse, yelling that the British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming. And you see two engagements on the day of April 19th, 1775. One happens at Lexington. This is in Massachusetts. The battle only lasts 15 minutes. You see the British soldiers, I guess if you want to call this a battle, they win. And they start to move on to Concord. At Concord, same, it's in Massachusetts. At Concord, they're met with, larger numbers of resistance. The colonial militias are there in larger numbers, and you actually see the British soldiers forced to retreat. And so, what is the significance of Lexington and Concord on April 19th, 1775? This or these events will be the first shots of the Revolutionary War. Most people call this the shot that's heard around the world, or the start of the American Revolution. An important important fact to take into consideration, though, that even though you started to see open, open shots being fired, most colonists still wanted to to remain loyal to the crown. However, you start to see in the summer of 1775 and in the early winter of 1776, talk of independence is going to become more and more popular. In fact, in May of 1775, the Second Continental Congress meets in Philadelphia to debate their next move. This is when John Adams, who is a moderate, he's not a radical, he's not on the extreme of one side or the other, he brings up the idea of independence. And you start to see the Continental Congress move towards that ultimatum of, we want to be loyal to the crown. However, if we feel like you leave us no choice, they're saying this about the king and about Parliament. If we feel like you leave us no choice, we are willing to debate and discuss the issue of independence. In this meeting during May of 1775, they agree to make George Washington commander of the Continental Army. They start issuing paper money. You have to have a banking system if you want to become a legitimate country. You have to have some sort of political structure there, which they had in the Second Continental Congress, and you have to get foreign recognition. And so they start to make moves to try to get foreign countries to support their fight against the British. This is going to be an ongoing issue. The financial problems and the gaining of support from foreign countries, that's going to be something that the Continental Congress will continue to work at throughout the war. Two major events occurred during the summer of 1775. The Battle of Bunker Hill, this is also in Massachusetts, and the Olive Branch Petition. The Battle of Bunker Hill is significant because this is going to be the deadliest battle of the war. The British soldiers are dressed in, their heavy wool uniforms. They decide to attack a colonial position at what's called Breed's Hill. The same place as Bunker Hill, it's just a different name. And they line up in the traditional, military formations that they're used to, which you see depicted in the picture at your right. And they make 3 waves of assaults on the colonial position. The first wave, the colonies are able to defend the British off. The second wave comes, and once again, the colonists are able to be successful in pushing the British back. However, during the third wave, the colonists they actually run low on ammunition, and the British are able to take the hill. However, the colonists only lose 450 men at the Battle of Bunker Hill, compared to over 1,000 casualties by the British. So even though the British win at the Battle of Bunker Hill, they suffer over 1,000 casualties. This shows Americans can hang with the British. We can take the British's best shot, and we can possibly win this, what will soon be a fight for independence. The second event that occurs in 1775 is the Olive Branch Petition. This is the last attempt made by the colonies to negotiate a peace between the British Crown and her colonies. However, King George III ignores the Olive Branch Petition. He states that the colonists or the colonies are an open rebellion, and he starts to organize preparations to put down this revolt. He starts to hire German mercenaries, or these are German soldiers hired to fight specifically in America to put down this revolt, this act of defiance by the American colonies. So the Olive Branch Petition comes a little too late. No longer can we negotiate out a peace. Independence must come. And in fact, it's in January of 1776, that a man named Thomas Paine publishes a pamphlet known as Common Sense, and this is a pamphlet. It's a brochure in which Thomas Paine declares that the time had come for colonists to proclaim their independence. It makes common sense for the colonies to become independent for Great Britain. It is Thomas Paine that puts it into simple language, simple English that everyone can understand. He makes it clear to the average American that the British Crown has left America with no choice but to become an independent country. Paine says that independence was America's destiny. That if we become independent, that this will allow America to trade with other countries, to get rid of those dreaded navigation acts, and that this will allow America to create a better society, one that's based on something called republicanism. Republicanism is a form of government in which the citizens vote for their representatives, and those representatives will then make the decisions or the day-to-day decisions of a government. We are a republic in which we vote for our leaders, and then our leaders will make the decisions for us. It's slightly different than a democracy in which the citizens take direct part in the decision-making process for the government. A republic is one in which we vote for our leaders. And Thomas Paine says republicanism is our destiny. Independence is our destiny. And, as we approach the spring of 1776, George Washington, in fact, recognizes the influence that Thomas Paine's pamphlet has had on the mind of the average American man. And he says that he senses the influence that Common Sense has had on the American mentality. And he senses the influence that Common Sense has had in moving Americans closer and closer to independence. And in fact, by July of 1776, North Carolina had already declared independence from the Crown. Virginia, their delegates said that they favored independence. And so we see that as we're approaching June and July of 1776, it is clear that independence is going to happen. And it is up to Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is selected by a committee in Philadelphia to write up this document declaring to the British Crown and declaring to the world why America is declaring their independence. And what this King George III, has done, to take away or to suppress the American people, to take away their natural rights, and leaving them no choice but to overthrow the government and declare independence. The Declaration of Independence, a key influence on Thomas Jefferson was the ideas of John Locke and other Enlightenment thinkers. If you recall, John Locke says that all people are born with certain natural rights, life, liberty, and property. Thomas Jefferson, in the preamble of the Declaration of Independence, he says, all men are created equal with certain inalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and it was changed to the pursuit of happiness. John Locke says that the government gets its power from the people, and that once a government violates these natural rights, that the people are left with no choice but to overthrow this government. Thomas Jefferson states that, and I'm going to paraphrase, put into my own words, essentially that once a government like Great Britain has taken away or has violated this contract between government and the people, that the people are left with no choice but to abolish or get rid of this government. It is very clear the influence that John Locke and the Enlightenment has on Thomas Jefferson when he's writing up the Declaration of Independence. And then Thomas Jefferson goes one by one. All right, and he just goes down a list. And this is what the king has done. This is what the king has done. This is what the king has done. He has taxed us without representation. He has put soldiers in our homes without our consent. He has conducted illegal searches and seizures. He has, taken up arms against, the citizens of the crown. And he just lays it out. Thomas Jefferson lays out a very clear and logical argument, for the rest of the world to see. This is why we are justified in declaring our independence from Great Britain. And so in July of 1776, the Declaration of Independence is written up. It's the final draft is submitted and is signed by the delegates of the